Hey, it's Parris. And before we get into this episode of Kind of Funny Xcast, I want to let you guys know that we recorded this on Friday afternoon. And here I am now recording this on Friday evening because on Friday morning, Xbox via Xbox Wire put out a press release announcing that Xbox Live Gold was going to have a price increase, essentially doubling the price of Xbox Live Gold on an annual basis. And as you can imagine, the community was not happy about this news. There was a lot of chatter via social media, so much so that when we recorded our episode, we discussed it. We gave our reasons why we didn't think it was that great of an idea. We also talked about why is Xbox still charging for free-to-play games to have multiplayer. Well, here we are on Friday evening, and guess what? Xbox has now listened to the community, they heard your feedback, and they put out another press release rolling back that change. I have to applaud Xbox for reacting to this so quickly, so much so that here I am on a Friday evening announcing that, hey, the episode that you're about to hear is not going to be up to date. But I think when you listen to the episode, you will hear our reasons why we did not think this was a good idea. And I think those are still valid. So again, what you're here is not going to be up to date according to the press release that Xbox put out, but I think there's still some great information in here for you to consume. And I would love to get your feedback on this. And for Gary and Mike, who are not here right now, I just want to thank them. It was a fantastic conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Kind of Funny Xcast. And we'll see you guys next week.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kind of Funny Xcast, your home for all things Xbox here at Kind of Funny. I'm one of your hosts, SnowBikeMike, and of course, I am joined today by my two incredible, amazing, and awe-inspiring co-hosts. Parris Lily, how are you doing today? I see you wearing your Tampa Bay red.
Oh, I'm ready. I am so ready for this NFC Championship game, Packers and the Buccaneers. As a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know what losing looks like, so I'm going to
Go
cherish.
Pack, go! Let's go, baby!
Oh no, Paris, we have Barrett yelling about the Packers. This is going to be a tough one here.
Being raised in Cleveland, we were never hopeful for the Browns. So my stepdad, when I was a kid, was a Packers fan. So that's just like what I was raised with. So I'm sorry, but go Pack.
Okay, well, Paris is ready for anything. A win would be great. A loss, he'll accept it. He'll move on. Now moving on, of course, my good friend in all green today, the rogue one, Mr. Gary Whitta. Gary, how are you doing this week?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a long week, but a good one. One of the things I love, I think we mentioned this last time about doing the podcast with you on a Friday afternoon, is it's the weekend and everyone's got the weekend vibes, ready to play some video games, ready to kick back. And the Xcast is the perfect way to get it all going. I love it.
Good. I like hearing that, Gary, and I'm glad that you're optimistic about the weekend because I was looking on Twitter yesterday, Paris. There I am. I'm scrolling, right? I'm doing the doom scrolling. And what do I see? You know, audio listeners, you won't be able to see this, but visual listeners, you'll see I saw Gary Whitta with his hood on like this. And that is, for the audio listeners, his hood was completely over his face, covering his face. And he said, today's mood. Gary, what's up with the mood? Why are we down, Gary? What's up?
In fact, it was this very hoodie that I was wearing that I can't now put on because my Astros are too big to fit under the hood. It wasn't honestly. It wasn't that I was feeling down. I was just tired. It's been a long week, you know. Like you can have a good week and still a tiring week, and I was just kind of exhausted. And at the end of the day, sometimes what I like to do is like kind of just crash on the couch and put my hoodie up over my face like a Sith Lord and just like kind of hide. Just hide from the world. But it's been a great week. You know, lots of reasons this week I think to start feeling more optimistic about the future. And I think I learned this week that the opposite of doom scrolling is glee freshing. I've been glee freshing all week. I've been enjoying that.
Yeah, you are. That's a good one, Gary. That's a good one.
Refreshing. I get it. It's just been mostly just from a work point of view. I'm like putting out fires everywhere. I'm just a little bit tired, and I have barely had a minute to play video games all week, which is why I'm carving out some time this weekend to dive into some Xbox games, and excited to talk about that with y'all.
I love that. Well, we have a lot of Xbox news to get into. Trust me, it's going to be a wild episode because it was a wild Friday before we recorded. But, I like to start off the show with a little bit of fun. And this week, my hopes were, I was through the roof. I was excited, Parris, right? Because I saw that Game Pass might have announced that Fall Guys was coming to the service. And then they said psych about a couple minutes later. So, of course, we had a big social media mix-up this week. Xbox Game Pass responded on an Instagram post to somebody that said, I would like to see Fall Guys. And their response was simply 2 words, it's coming, which then quickly became deleted. And Devolver Digital and Mediatonic both came out and said, well, that's not actually happening. Devolver Digital responded to Tom Warren of The Verge on Twitter with the following, quote, there are no plans for Fall Guys to come to any form of Game Pass, end quote. Parris, I see you laughing. I love Fall Guys. What was this all about? I thought we had a great social media team. Everybody was crushing it. What's the little slip up here? Is this another control situation again?
Let's hope it is another control situation and it winds up coming to Xbox and coming to Game Pass. But maybe they jumped the gun. Who knows? But I think one of my first appearances on Xcast, I even said this at the time when Fall Guys was, when it first came out and it was the rage. It's a no-brainer that this will eventually come to Xbox. This will eventually come to the Switch. It just makes sense. You incorporate crossplay into this. It's the ultimate solution. So you just get everyone playing together all at once. So maybe they just jumped the gun. Hopefully, knock on wood, this announcement does happen later this year, because anyone that's only on the Xbox, you're missing out. It's a very fun game. So I'm excited for more people to be able to jump in and start playing.
Gary Whitta, now you host a Fall Guys talk show. You've played in many Fall Guys tournaments. You and I have beaten the Fall Guys drum to death here on the Xcast. What were your thoughts when you saw this happening, and then were your dreams dashed immediately afterwards?
No, I mean, as Parris says, it's regardless of any social media hiccups this week, Fall Guys is coming to the Xbox. It's a matter of when, not if. We know that it just makes total sense. They'd be leaving money on the table to not bring it to the Xbox. It's not a platform exclusive. Sony paid a bunch of money for a limited exclusive at launch. It's really just a matter of time of when that window is going to expire. I can't speak to what happened in the social media realm. We see these things all the time, right? Some social media intern tweets something and then immediately deletes it, and there's like a 5-minute drama, and everyone has to come in and kind of clean up the mess. Someone at Game Pass, on the Game Pass social media team, probably got a very stern talking to this week. That's not necessarily the story, though. And again, even the denial was couched in very equivocal language. There are currently no plans to bring it to Xbox Game Pass. That doesn't mean that it's not coming to the Xbox. That doesn't even mean it's not coming to Game Pass. It just means they're saying they don't have any current plans. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mediatonic don't already have a almost finished build of an Xbox version of Fall Guys running internally, and probably for the Switch as well, ready to deploy the minute that their PlayStation exclusivity expires. Because it wouldn't be good business to, if you know what your date is, let's say the date is like June 30th, 2021 of this year. That's when they're no longer obligated to have PlayStation exclusivity. They're not going to sit around the table and say, oh, well, okay, June 30th, exclusivity's up, better start developing the Xbox version. No, you have something ready to go. Exactly. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised if there wasn't already serious development underway on Xbox and Switch platforms in anticipation of whatever that, we don't know what the date is, but whatever that date is, I imagine that's when we'll start to see something more tangible. Cross-play obviously is something we all, even just right now, even in the existing PC and PlayStation versions, we'd love to see cross-play. We're certainly going to love to see it once all the console versions are available. You just got to remember, Mediatonic is a small team. I mean, before this, the biggest game they did was a dating simulator where you played a pigeon. This was not like a AAA development team. This was a small development team in the UK who, struck lightning in a bottle with Fall Guys and had a big, big hit. And now they're much like, the Inner Sloth, very, very small team, 3 or 4 people who are now racing to catch up with the sudden success of Among Us. Mediatonic is trying to, they're hiring like crazy. They're trying to build up their team. They're basically trying to catch up with the runaway success of their game. Their roadmap is all over the place, right? They need DLC. They need to keep the battle pass, the seasons going. They need to keep fixing there's still bugs. There's still all kinds of issues, technical issues. Just keeping the game going and keeping the servers running and just maintaining the game as is a full-time job. But they also need to keep growing it. You're talking about these extra platforms, Xbox, Switch, cross-play. There's so much to do. It's just it's all going to happen. It's just, again, it's a matter of when they're going to get to it, not if. But I know that the day, Mike, that Fall Guys comes to Xbox, it's going to be we're going to have a very, very celebratory episode of the Xcast. We should have a little pool. Like, when is it going to be this year? I don't know. I'd like to think it'll be this year. Again, who knows how long that exclusivity window that Sony paid for is? But it's going to expire, and we'll be playing Fall Guys on the Xbox and on the Nintendo Switch.
I had no idea.
I think this year.
I had no idea that Mediatonic was the developer behind Hatoful Boyfriend, and that's just really funny to me.
The more you know. That's right. Yeah.
People play that game. It's a really weird and funny game.
It's a funny game. Yeah.
And Gary, I think you brought up a great point. The fact that this is a small development studio, if PlayStation approaches them at the time, because no one knew that Fall Guys was going to become this huge hit that it became. If PlayStation had the foresight to come to them ahead of time and go, look, we will give you X amount of dollars for a 1-year exclusive deal, of course you're going to take it. It just makes sense. But like you're saying, as soon as that's up, I would say the next day, it's on the Xbox, it's on the Switch. Who knows if they'll be able to have crossplay ready by then and all that, but it'll be everywhere. It just makes sense.
And there were two parts to that Sony deal as well, not just the exclusivity and whatever money they paid. And I know, we know this for a fact, because I remember when Phil Spencer was on Animal Talking, I kind of said, hey, when is Fall Guys going to be in the Xbox? And he just said, well, Sony paid a ton of money for that exclusive window. So like, we have it from a very high source that's what happened. And we're all just waiting for that window to expire. The other component of that Sony exclusivity, of course, I think was a big part of Fall Guys' initial success, was that it was on PS Plus. So it put it in the closest thing they have right now to Game Pass. That put it in the hands of a lot of people that might otherwise wouldn't have dropped $20 on it. I think even if they'd have sold it a la carte, Fall Guys would have emerged as a big game this past year, because it's a fantastic game and the cream always floats to the top. I just think it really helped it. It put it into the hands of so many gamers right off the bat. Everyone's like, oh, why not? It's this month's PS Plus game. I'll check it out. And I think it definitely helped. It was a big part of the Fall Guys launch pad. So again, that comes back to the question of would it be on Game Pass? Now necessarily Fall Guys doesn't need, and Fall Guys is already huge. Everyone on Xbox, I'm sure, wants to get their hands on it, whether it's on whether it's on Game Pass or whether it's going to be an a la carte purchase. I'd love to see it on Game Pass, but I would say, will it come to Xbox? 100%. Will it be on Game Pass, or will it be an a la carte, like $20 purchase? I think that's a coin flip. Could go either way.
I agree.
Okay. Well, some fun stuff over there on the social media side, and actually leads us into our big topic, talking about PlayStation Plus, games with gold, Game Pass, whole lot of hubbubaloo here on a Friday. So let's get into it. Of course, our housekeeping news. This is the Kind of Funny Xcast. It posts each and every Saturday at 6 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast time on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and on podcast services around the globe. Please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Like the video, share it with your mama, share it with your friends. Let them know all about the Xcast and the Xbox news coming their way. And of course, if you're on a podcast service, leave a review. Let us know what you think of the show. This week, the Xcast is sponsored by Purple Mattresses, but we'll get into that later. Guys, let's jump right into the meat of it. It has been a crazy Friday morning. Of course, this show does release on a Saturday, but man, oh man, the gaming world is talking, it's rocking, and there's a lot to discuss here. So I'm going to read straight off the Xbox blog post, because for me, it's always best to go right to the source, and then we'll break down our thoughts from there. So, Xbox Live price increase on the way. This is going to come from the Xbox blog post. Periodically, we assess the value and pricing of our services to reflect changes in regional marketplaces and to continue to invest in the Xbox community. We'll be making price adjustments for Xbox Live Gold in select markets. In many markets, the price of Xbox Live Gold has not changed for years, and in some markets, it hasn't changed for over 10 years. So what does that mean for you, gamers? If you're an existing online 12-month or 6-month Xbox Live Gold member, there's no price change. If you choose to renew your membership, it will renew at your current price. The price of a 1-month gold membership is increasing $1, and the price of a 3-month membership is increasing $5, or the equivalent amount in your local market. If you'd like to upgrade your gold membership to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, your remaining gold time will also convert directly to Ultimate up to 36 months. For example, if you have 11 months of Xbox Live Gold now and you upgrade to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, those 11 months will convert to 11 months of Ultimate at no additional cost. So guys, before we get into it, that's straight from the blog post. Went over to GameSpot. They did a great job of breaking down all the prices, right? So let me give you a quick pricing structure. The new pricing structure for Xbox Live Gold will be as follows. 1 month, $11. 3 months, $30. 6 months, $60. Now, this is only a little bit less than the Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which is priced at the following. 1 month for $15. 3 months for $45. Of course, they have to have the competition on here, so let's see what Sony's doing. Sony's PlayStation Plus service is now priced much lower than Xbox Live Gold. If you're not renewing a membership, 1 month is $10, 3 months is $25, 12 months is $60. Parris, this has been raging on Twitter all day long before we recorded. There is a lot of sides to this coin, right? There's one side, there's the other side, there's business deals, there's people out there in the middle of a pandemic trying to make as much money as they can and putting it towards gaming services. What is up with your thoughts right now of Microsoft increasing the price of Xbox Live Gold in this service?
It's disappointment. I try to always look at these from the consumer point of view because business is business. I understand things happen behind the scenes. There's number crunching and all that. But as a consumer, to see that, number one, Xbox Live Gold isn't going away. Number one, because why is multiplayer not free at this point on the console? Because it is free on the PC. But you increase the price and you do it in a way that you're using it as a leverage to push people towards Game Pass. And to be clear, we shill for Game Pass on this show. So we love Game Pass. I was ready to come on here and just sing the praises of Game Pass with some of the new releases that are coming out. That's what I thought we were going to be talking about this week. But instead, we have to talk about the disappointment of the business side of video games, because that's what this is. And it's clear they don't need to raise the price of Xbox Live Gold because they're not raising the price for existing customers. If it was a finance thing, we'd all be getting a price increase. But instead, they're almost, and I'm trying to be careful with the way I use this phrase, but they're almost bullying new customers into getting Game Pass. That's how I view this, because why would you spend, just to make this simple, why would you spend $120 a year for Xbox Live Gold when you might as well just spend just a little bit more and get Game Pass Ultimate and have all the perks? And obviously you get to take advantage of this great service that is Game Pass at the same time. So they're devaluing Xbox Live Gold by increasing the price of it, so to speak. And the best way I look at this, because I've seen a lot of comments on social media today, the common thing that I've seen from people is, hey, I only play Madden. I just like to play Fortnite. That's all I like to do. Why are you now going to make me spend $120 a year to do that? Number one, anything that's free to play, you shouldn't have to pay a dime on it anyways. That's just my own personal opinion. But it's disappointing because, to be frank about this, obviously senior leadership at Xbox had to sign off on this. So I'm not sure how they thought this was a good idea. And it's pretty clear they didn't think this was a good idea because you threw it out in a press release on Friday, so hoping it would just get lost in the news over the weekend, right? If this was something that you wanted to proudly announce, you would have said it earlier in the week. The way I look at it, to keep it simple, and I know Gary's going to want to jump in on this too, so I'll try and keep this brief. If you knew this was bad news, because we know it is, get out in front of this. Instead of an Xbox Wire press release, have whoever representative you want from Xbox go talk to the Washington Post, go talk to IGN or whoever the case, go talk to us, I don't know, but talk to someone and actually explain the reasoning behind this, because I have not seen one person today, one news outlet today, think this was a good idea. If anything, they've looked at it as you've taken all the goodwill that you've had and you're kind of ruining it with this type of announcement. That's kind of been the sentiment that I've seen. And I'll use this analogy. CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk 2077 as an example. You know, I'm sitting in the chair. It's like I've been a big fan of that. I've advocated for that for so long, but then they did what they did by prematurely launching that game, and it essentially killed all the goodwill that they'd been building since The Witcher 3. I'm not saying this is as extreme as that, but it's leaning that way. And I really would hope that they'd get out in front of this and explain it more, because right now it just looks like a tactic to get you to go to Game Pass. So that's my rant.
All right, Gary, I mean, give me some of your initial thoughts, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper because there's a lot of conversation to be had here. But what's your initial thoughts on this price increase?
Well, first of all, to Parris's point, I understand that in the broader news spectrum, you know, Friday is known as take out the trash day. You know, you bury bad news on a Friday. Not in the Xbox world, though, because if you release bad news on a Friday, you're walking right into the Kind of Funny Xcast hot take buzzsaw, as they have done with this. And now they're going to hear from us. I know Parris has not been thrilled about this move. He's been very vocal on Twitter today with his thoughts about this being, not a particularly pro-consumer move. And of course, it's never pro-consumer when you raise prices. I'm a little bit more sanguine about it. You know me, if you've ever watched me on Games Daily, you know that I'm not pro-corporation. I'm pro-consumer. I'll always give corporations shit when I feel like they deserve it. I wonder if this is, though, just part of a broader economic picture. Internet services, the prices have been going up all over. If you have Netflix, you know that your prices got jacked up this year. I use YouTube TV for my TV service, and they jacked up the prices massively this year. Like, prices are going up all over. And it should be noted that this is the first price rise that they've done, on God, in 10 years. A big point was made. Oh, it's now double what it was a year ago. Yeah, okay, but it's also double what it was 10 years ago. And inflation and everything else. I don't know what the economic factors are inside Microsoft that compelled them to raise these prices. Again, they know they're always going to take a hit. In the public sphere, in terms of the consumers going, what the hell are you doing? If anytime prices are raised, they must. I don't think they did this because they're greedy. They felt like economically they needed to do it. At the same time, I do think it touches on clearly something that we've all talked about on the Xcast before, in which when Alana was on the show, we discussed it as well. The idea that right now the current offerings are just confusing. And again, I still think that Microsoft has a bigger problem with how they make and market these things. Series S, Series X, 1S, 1X. It's a mess. Like, the consoles aren't named well. It's very confusing for consumers. I personally know people that bought the wrong console because they thought a 1S was a Series S. Like, it's just bad. And the Game Pass, and then Game Pass, all different tiers of Game Pass, and then Xbox Live. PlayStation have a similar problem, with PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus. The two offerings that are similar but not the same. Just try to simplify it as much as you can. And I agree with Parris that I feel like what they're trying to do here is like kind of passive aggressively get people away from gold. And so it's like, again, that argument is like, why? Okay, you could buy gold for a year, but why would you do that when just for a few extra bucks you can have this incredible extra value? Game Pass, as we all know, because we say it all the time, it's just great value. But it's an even better value when you think about it in terms of just how much little extra it is over the gold subscription you might already be paying for. The argument's been made, well, maybe I don't want Game Pass. I guess there's someone like that out there. Who that is, I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you want Game Pass? At the same time, I just think that what I would like to see them moving towards is just like a simpler version of the offering where like Xbox Live Gold just gets folded into like a tier of Game Pass. Like, maybe it's part of like the basic Game Pass, or and then you can have Ultimate and these different tiers. But just in terms of the branding and the messaging and people understanding what it is that they're getting and what it is that they're buying. Because don't forget, you have there's all these different ways you can save money on the Xbox platform. Game Pass will let you play all these games for one subscription, but it also lets you buy games to keep at a lower price if you have a Game Pass subscription. That's very similar to what they do with games with Gold. If you have Xbox Live Gold, they also throw in discounts on purchasing games. So there's a bunch of different branded offerings here that are kind of doing similar but not the same things. I think it's confusing. I think the bigger picture here is they need to find a way to consolidate the offering. To Parris's point as well, I agree that right now this is an area where Sony has a bit of an edge. It used to be for the longest time, of course, that Sony had a big edge over Microsoft because online on PlayStation was free. And it was always, and you always paid for it with Xbox Live. Sony eventually realized that they couldn't justify that economically. They had to start asking you to pay for it, but they still did and still do today carve out free. If you want to play Fortnite, if you want to play Warzone, you don't need PS Plus to play those games and have access to online. On Xbox Live, you do. No matter how free the game is, you're paying to play online. So that is still an area where I think Sony has a little bit of an edge. I would love to see, again, I don't know the economics well enough to know if it's viable, but I would love to see one of these companies just kind of unilaterally disarm and just say, you know what, we're going back to it being free. Your move, rival console manufacturer, because we don't like paying for this stuff. It's obviously massively expensive to maintain all the server infrastructure and moderating and everything they need to do to keep these servers active. Like Xbox Live is a massive business of itself in and of itself that needs to be paid for. And right now they're paying for it via your subscriptions. If that money's not coming in, they have to find a way to get it from somewhere else because those are expensive. Maintaining online infrastructure is really, really expensive. So I understand why both Sony and Microsoft are asking for us to pay for it. But I would love to see some kind of arms race between Sony and Microsoft where, if we talk about all the time about how there's not that much daylight between the two consoles, they're both relatively the same power technically. They both have mostly the same games, like 90% of the games are the same, and you both have to pay for online. So when someone says to you, should I buy an Xbox or a PlayStation, there's not a lot to talk to them about, but it would be nice to be able to say, hey, if you got an Xbox, you don't have to pay for online. The way that used to be the trump card that Sony had in their pocket. Now it's a bit more equitable. But I would love to see paying for online. Again, as Parris says, you don't have to pay for it on PC. Why are we paying for it on consoles? Again, it's a bit more of a walled garden, and there's more going on than the Wild West of playing games on the PC side, where there's hackers and all kinds of horrible things that can happen to you. Bottom line, I know I've been rambling on for a while. Bottom line, the one thing I would like to see happen is get Xbox Live Gold go away and just get folded into a more simplified, tiered Game Pass type offering.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. So two things, just to follow up on what you said. The one thing I've been tweet storming all day about is they already have the formula there and they can tweak it a little bit, but you already have Xbox Live Gold a part of Game Pass Ultimate. You make free multiplayer for free to play games, and you take all the current perks of Gold and you just keep them in the quote unquote Game Pass Ultimate tier. We've already stated on the show how much of a value we feel that it is. I mean, I think Game Pass Ultimate is great. Even if you just get base Game Pass on the console, I think that's a great value as well. I understand that there's the cost, like you said, the server costs and everything that goes along with this, but it's like you've had so many consumer friendly moves that you've been doing the past couple of years. Like, and that to bring me to the second part of my thing I want to say is with Halo Infinite. I mean, when they announced that Halo Infinite was going free to play, everyone was like, well, looks like Gold's probably going to go away, because if you're going to offer free, let's just take the logic of this. You're basically telling me the way it is today, when Halo Infinite comes out in November, yes, the multiplayer is free to play, but I can play that on the PC. I'm good. I'm not paying one red nickel. I just play Halo Infinite. But if I want to play on an Xbox console, I got to give you $120 a year just to play the quote unquote free to play version of Halo Infinite. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm hoping here there's more to this story than what we just got today. And we'll find out that there is some logic to this. And like I said, at least at the free to play level, there's free multiplayer. So if you're a Fortnite player, if you're a Destiny 2 player or Warzone or whatever, like we said, Halo Infinite, you're not being charged for gold. And then we can talk what's getting folded into subscription services and all that. But if this is what it's going to be, I just don't see how this was a good idea. It just goes against everything that they've been doing the past couple years. So again, this is why I say, if you're going to make this a kind of announcement, there's going to be pushback on it. Maybe we need to have the human element in there and actually explain further, or, hey, we know what it looks like right now, more details to come kind of thing, or whatever. Because right now, this is just disappointing to me. I'm not happy with this at all.
Yeah, and given that there isn't a huge difference in price between Xbox Live, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. See, I'm telling you,
I know it's so many.
Out.
Yeah,
We're confused, and we do this. We do this all the time. Between Game Pass Ultimate and Xbox Live Gold for a yearly subscription, just get rid of it and say, you know what, Xbox Live Gold is now Game Pass Ultimate, and find a price that makes sense for both. And now Xbox Live, yes, we raised the price of Xbox Live Gold, but now it's an even better value because we're folding all this into it. And just keep it simple. There's too much consumer confusion out there, I think, with these different offer. Again, I'm still confused by what the difference is between PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. Similar but not the same. One kind of there's a Venn diagram of like, this gives you this but not that, and the other one gives you that but not this. Just please make it simpler for us. Again, Game Pass there's so much goodwill behind the Game Pass brand right now. Lean into that, integrate Xbox Live Gold into that, and just let it just have one offering to rule them all.
Very well said from both of you. I mean, this is the hot topic right now, and I think Parris said it best. Of like, here we are on a Friday afternoon, and the human element is gone. Right now, this leads to just nothing but speculation, a hot Twitter fire going wild on social media, and that good grace that we all gave Xbox since the launch of this new console, especially next week with the medium coming out, right? We've had nothing but great stuff on the Xbox side. And then today, of all days, this is a very interesting one. And I think if we all look back, right, we talked about this on the Xcast with Alana during that time when they stopped the 12 months of Xbox Live Gold memberships. And we said, what's the plan here, right? Are we going to cut this all out and not talk about it? Are we going to move into Game Pass and just lump everything together? And here we are now. We're having another conversation still without the human element and kind of lost of what is happening with this decision, because it's not pro-consumer, right? And we've talked about this with this Xbox ecosystem that we've wanted to create is we're putting you, the gamers, at the center. But now it feels like half of the gamers, or maybe more, we don't know the actual numbers of who's still on Xbox Live Gold compared to Game Pass Ultimate. What's going on here? Because these people are now going to be left in the dust and have to make a big decision in the middle of a global pandemic. I think that's the big one a lot of people are touching on right now is money's already tight. We're all trapped at home. We've been using video games as the release, as the escape that we all need. And now everybody really has to look at themselves and go, oh man, did I just get hit? As Parris said, right? I only played Madden online. Oh man, I have to pay X amount of dollars more. This is a big decision. This is a big moment here on the Xbox side. And we've lost that kind of confrontation, that communication that we needed from the Xbox PR team and the Xbox heads that we really wanted to see here. And now the question becomes is, what do we do with gold? Parris, you brought it up very well. It's 2021. If I play on the PC, I'm playing online for free. We just jump into matches. Now I'm still paying for this. Is this the move for Xbox, especially with Halo, let's say 10 months from now, free-to-play multiplayer? You can't expect for half or more of this console to pay for all this and be stuck playing multiplayer for $120 a year when the other side over on PC is going to be playing it for free on that online service. Where do we go from here, Parris? Is that the right move? Just to say, hey, we're opening up the barricade and then you have one up on Sony? Or is there too much money left on the table here? Because this is a business.
And that's the tricky part of it. Because again, I can only talk about this from a consumer standpoint. So of course, I'm going to say, open the floodgates. Why are we paying anything? Just open it up. But we know that there is something on the back end. There's some number crunching there. There is some logic to this. I just hope the logic isn't, well, we want people to sub the Game Pass, so let's just price this thing and that'll literally force people to want to sub the Game Pass. I hope that's not the logic behind this. But you can't ignore the fact that on PC, you don't have to pay anything. You just buy the game and you play it. That's it. If I bought the Halo Master Chief Collection on Steam, I'm playing the Halo Master Chief Collection and all the multiplayer matches until my heart is content. Same with Gears 5 on down the list, right? So why? And this is where the human element comes in. I think, explain to me, even if I don't like the answer, give me an explanation as to why. Because like you said, Mike, all we're doing is speculating because we don't have an answer to why they're making these decisions. And yes, there's probably finances. Obviously, xCloud comes. There's so many moving parts in the Xbox ecosystem. But I bring it back to, again, you've been doing so many consumer-friendly moves. You know this was not going to be received well. So Why didn't you anticipate that? And shout out to Danny Pena, my co-host on Gamertag Radio. He even said this to him feels like something they would have done in 2013. This feels like a Don Matrick move.
That's like the harshest thing you could say.
But it's true though. What were we saying in 2013 when we saw all their moves? And look, and I don't think I've ever said this officially on here. I don't necessarily disagree with some of the things that the original Xbox One vision was going to do. I thought there was actually some smart things in there, but the way you presented it was completely anti-consumer. So not to say this is apples for apples, but again, this comes off. The perception of this is anti-consumer. If it's not, tell me why it isn't and help me understand. Like I said, Game Pass is amazing. Like, I want to be crystal clear on that. I will shill for that until the day I'm kicked off this show. I think it is a fantastic service and they've done a great thing with that. I think there's great value there. But you taint it with this because you almost feel like you're trying to push people towards something that not everyone's going to want. Again, the Madden guy does not want Game Pass because all he wants to play is Madden, right? He has no need for Game Pass. He's only playing 1 or 2 games a year and that's it. So he's almost being penalized for not wanting to play a whole bunch of games because now you're telling, look, $60 a year was already kind of pushing it in my opinion. Now you're doubling it to $120. Why would I play Madden on Xbox anymore? I might as well play it on the competition if that's the case, where I'm not going to have to spend that amount of money to play the same game. That's all.
No doubt.
Yeah. I agree. A lot of this is the optics and the perception of it, and part of and to Parris's point earlier, I think one of the smartest things he said was at the top of his initial reaction to this was that I think they could have handled this differently rather than just put out a one-sided press release that didn't really explain why they were doing what they were doing. Again, the most interesting question always is why would somebody do this? And they didn't really address that. It was very opaque, and there's no opportunity for them to really. They didn't give themselves an opportunity to kind of get ahead of this. I think what they should have done, again, is like what Parris said they should have done. They should have reached out to a media outlet and said, let's have a conversation. We're going to tell you what we're doing, and you can interview us, ask us tough questions, and let's give this a thorough airing, and we'll explain to you exactly why we're doing everything that we are doing. And I think that would have given us something more substantive to talk about right now. Right now, we're just playing around and go, why would they do this? What are the reasons why? Because they haven't told us anything. They've just said, guess what? Prices are going up. Deal with it. I think if they had rolled this out from in a different way, from a PR or a marketing perspective, again, like a proper interview, and not like a puff piece, but like a real grilling, like explain to me why you're doing this, have like a proper journalist, like really ask them the tough questions and have them justify. I think we might have a better understanding of this, and it might have gotten a little bit better for them, because right now, it's a little bit surprising to see, because we love the Series X, we love the Series S, we love Game Pass. There's never ending kind of good vibes right now coming out of Microsoft. Everything seems to be going really great, and then they go and do this, and it's like, wow, that feels like a rare misstep for them. It's entirely possible that as an economic matter, the prices just had to go up. Again, I don't pretend to know what the economic imperatives or what the kind of the business and financial goals are within Microsoft that they need to hit. The prices probably need to go up. Again, you never put prices up unless you really have to. They obviously had to. Just explain it to us a little bit better. Don't just say, yeah, guess what, suckers, prices are going up, and then leave. Explain yourself a little bit. Talk to us. Explain what's going on. I don't think that would have been difficult to do. For whatever reason, they chose not to do it. But I don't know. It seems like a weird way to have announced what they knew was news. If you've got news that is not going to be well received, get out ahead of it as much as you can. Don't just do a hit and run like this.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You guys bring up the optics, right? We're really talking about optics today. And on top of this Xbox blog post coming out, we actually had the announcement of Games with Gold for February come out the same day. And Games with Gold this month is 5 games as opposed to the kind of normal 4 games that we see. And at the end of the year, we also talked about how much value Games with Gold was, what kind of every single month, how much it really came out to. This month is over $100 at $104.95. So it was almost like you said, Parris and Gary, right? Here's the optic of, hey, here's the bad punch, here's the bad taste. But, quickly, did you know that Games with Gold, we're going to give you 5, and it's a pretty big value this month. It's a pretty big value. Is this their kind of saving grace? Like, Parris, we've talked about Game Pass, but we also have to remember Games with Gold is like Xbox Live and Games with Gold each and every month, right? That's kind of the package that you get from this service, right? We've had this conversation before. Is it time to give up games with gold? Is the price increase now maybe justifying, hey, we're going to give you more value with games with gold, no matter how you see these games that we give you each and every month? Does this play a factor on the business side, or what do we got to do with this service?
See, and I don't know what the true answer to this is, because again, that perk lives inside of Game Pass Ultimate already, right? But I think the big discussion and what's throwing people up in arms here is, okay, that perk is nice. Like, I actually took advantage of it for this last one. I got Little Nightmares. I grabbed that, right? So, but I don't every month necessarily take advantage of it. It's not something that I'm necessarily looking forward to every month. It's just me on a personal level. The issue is multiplayer. That needs to be, I don't know how, I don't know what you're going to do. I just feel like that portion of this needs to be separated from the quote unquote gold perks. More people care about, I just want to be able to play with my friends online. And why are you making me spend more money to do it, so to speak? Again, this goes back to the person that does not care about subscribing to Game Pass, because not everyone wants to do that, but they do want to play with their friends. And I keep saying it, but you have to look at it, because this is the reality. I have a great PC. I play the majority of my games on this PC, Xbox, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't need Game Pass or Xbox Live Gold to do that. I can buy all my individual games either through the Microsoft Store or on Steam, and I'm good to go. It's almost like I'm being penalized to want to go play those same games out in my living room with my family on a console. This is where the human element of explaining this comes in. So justify this to me. Explain to me why this is the case. Whether I like it or not, at least I know where I stand on it.
Yeah, that's that feeling, right? And I think I'm looking at the live chat right now for everybody tuning in live on Patreon, and Kyle puts it really, really well, right? Game Pass should be optional, not mandatory. And that's one where we're falling in line here, right? Xbox Gold memberships are online multiplayer and these games with gold every single month. And we're accustomed to that since the 360 days when this was created. Now we live in the new world, right? Where, like you said, Parris, I'm on PC, I'm playing multiplayer games for free, right? Game Pass is that added benefit for that increased amount to get you those games. But when I look at it, right, it's just this online multiplayer factor. And that is where we're really going to have the conversation around this in the coming months. When will the barricade drop down? We've talked about it with crossplay, right? When will we all bridge the gap and say, hey, man, over there on that side, they're doing this. Over there on that side, they're doing this. Where do we fall? And it's showing us right now that Xbox is saying, well, we're still holding tight to Xbox Live Gold, right? We're still holding on to this. And it's really just the online multiplayer. And when do we give this up? Or do we never give this up? Because right now, from what it looks like, this to me doesn't mean we're giving it up in the next 6 months, unless they come out with a press release and say, you know what? Actually, we got to rethink this. But as you said, Halo free to play, this is going to be a big question mark here. And is that going to be the moment where we drop everything? Would this be something where they're saving it 10 months down the line and they're just not ready to announce it? But what is this free-to-play multiplayer going to look like?
It's going to be fascinating when Halo Infinite drops, because I think that's going to be the big test of what they plan to do and how they're handling their quote-unquote free-to-play Halo Infinite. I even remember a point in time where you had to have Xbox Live Gold just to watch Netflix, as an example. So things do change. Hopefully today they've seen the overwhelming feedback that, yeah, we don't like this. So I don't expect them to fully roll it back, but maybe there's a tweak to it. Maybe there's an explanation to it. We'll see. Taking even back to 2013. They heard the voice of the community then that people did not like the message that they were displaying for the Xbox One, quote unquote, online plans, right? And they rolled it back. So let's see what they do. But today was a surprise. Like when I saw it come across, I go, that can't be right. Is it? but it was true. So we'll see.
Okay, with a good one over here on Jeff Grubb. So I've been jumping around Twitter, checking out what everybody's been saying, what's some of the hot takes. An interesting one was somebody tweeted at Jeff Grubb, this man named Brad, and he said, Amazon.com, my guy, $60 for a digital gold code right now. Buy 3 of them, load them up, and convert them to Game Pass for $1. Thank me later. And Jeff Grubb responded with, hey, I appreciate that this works and it's a great idea, but people now have to argue that they have to look at each other and say, I'm now going to give Microsoft $181 today, right? And so it's a great way to convert, and they have this awesome system in place. and you try to think of ways to scheme it or, work around it. It's not really a scheme. It's a smart move right there. But it also, at the same time, they just slapped me in the face. Am I really going to drop $181 right now just so I can get that? And so, Gary, what are some of your thoughts here on that kind of move? Or is this something you would encourage people to take advantage of? I mean, Game Pass is a great thing, but like Kyle said, it should be optional, right? It's not mandatory. Are you worrying for people that are now saying, what am I supposed to do?
What you just mentioned about the physical cards is an interesting workaround, and that's I get it, that would work, and life finds a way, right? The good like cheap ass gamer and Fat Wallet and the Wario 64s of the world will always find a way to save some money no matter what you do. That's one way to get ahead of it. I do think it's worth mentioning that they aren't raising prices for existing subscribers, just new ones. So there's at least that. I'd probably be more chagrined about this if I felt like my prices were going up as an existing. My Xbox Live subscription, I've had it for like more than 10 years. Actually even longer than that, like really ever since like the first Xbox, a real long time. If I felt my prices were going up, I'd be more pissed off. You'll notice it's usually the other way around, right? When there's like a special offer or something, it's like new customers only. It's like for existing customers, like, well, we've got your money already. We don't have to do anything nice for you, but like we want to try and get new customers in the door. This is almost the opposite. It's again, like for people that are thinking about getting an Xbox, again, I do think it is intended to kind of drive people more towards Game Pass. Again, you look at the offerings. Well, a year of gold costs this much versus a year of Game Pass Ultimate, which includes gold, but also all this other stuff for not that much more. I do think they are kind of passive aggressively trying to drive people more towards Game Pass, and I don't think this is the end game. I think they are continuing to kind of calibrate their business model towards something that's more Game Pass centric. Why they don't do that by just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off, I don't know. I'm not a businessman, but it does seem like with every move that they make, they are again devaluing Xbox Live Gold in the eyes of consumers and increasing the perceived value of Game Pass. So I do think like a year from now, it'll probably look even different. 6 months from now, hey, guess what? Here's the next move towards a more unified offering or a simpler model or something like that. But for right now, yeah, it's no one. I don't know why anyone at Xbox PR or a corporate would have been surprised by this. Hey, guess what, guys? We people aren't responding well to us raising prices. Well, I mean, yeah. Who is shocked by that? They're probably just amazed. This happens all the time. Like I remember when my Netflix subscription went up by a couple of bucks, I was like, oh fuck. But like, what am I going to do? Not have Netflix? It's like practically utility at this point. It's like your gas, electric, and Netflix that you got to have it. So we'll complain for a bit, and then the world will go back to normal. I do think it sucks that prices had to go up. Again, I don't think they would have done it unless they absolutely needed to. And again, we keep coming back to it. Just get Game Pass. Just get Game Pass.
It's easy to say that, and we also have to remember the opposite side, right? Because it is easy for me and my friends. I had the conversation before we went live today of like, hey, what's everybody's thoughts? I want to hear it. And my friend Washburn said that exact thing of like, why are you not having Game Pass at this point? Why are we not there? And I agree with that, right? I'm coming from somebody, one sec, Parris, because I'm coming from somebody where I'm accustomed to Game Pass, right? It is my Netflix subscription. I don't think about it. But then I also said to myself, just like Kyle said, very well put, right? That's an optional thing, Mike. Like that does not matter. If you want to get those games, that's great. There are thousands, millions of people who are not in it for the Android, PC, and Xbox Game Pass ecosystem. They don't need that added benefit. They're accustomed to, hey, this is how it's always been. If I want to play my multiplayer games on Xbox, I pay X amount of dollars. And now they're getting told, hey, you want to do all that? Well, we're going to double the price. So figure it out, right? And so it's easy for me and all of us, I'm sure, to look at the camera and be like, hey, yeah, just get Game Pass. But there is an opposite side of the coin, and it's tough, right? It's tough to accept that and look inside and say that. But there are other people who don't want this, that don't like this idea. And I think it's on Xbox, like we talked about, to now readjust, reassess, and come out with a better statement, or at least give us some background story on what's going to go on here. Parris, what'd you think of that?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. What I was just going to say on that, and it goes back to what Gary said, just rip the Band-Aid then. If the end game in this is we want people subbing to Game Pass, take away the option to get Xbox Live Gold and just rip the Band-Aid and go, guess what? Everyone that is currently an Xbox Live Gold subscriber, we're converting it to Game Pass. Congratulations. Now you have access to hundreds of games. You can continue to pay the same price you were and subscribe to Game Pass on the console if you choose, or you can upgrade to Game Pass Ultimate. Now you can play it on the console, the PC, your Android device, and you'll get all those old gold perks that you used to have before. People might grumble for a little bit, but what will we most likely say on here? Hey, I get it. But at the end of the day, you're actually getting more for your money now because it's on Game Pass. And that does apply to what they're doing right now. It's just the way that they're doing it, it doesn't look great on the surface. And that's why I keep saying it would be real nice if someone would come out and actually explain that versus us speculating about it.
Yeah, it's well said, the rip the Band-Aid off, right? Because I think we're about to hit that, right? This might have been a small punch in the gut here and maybe a preparation blow. But in all honesty, when we do get to November or whenever Halo comes out or future down the line, a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, we will get to that moment, Parris. And you're right about that. We're going to get to a moment where this is over with. We're moving to a new evolution of our gaming system and what we want to be. So you're either on it or you're not on it, right? And there's going to be a big moment here. And this might have been the initial blow. We had the conversation a couple months ago about 12 months going away and not being sold anymore. Here's another one. And soon enough down the line, we're just going to keep moving forward and this will be over with. So it's going to be interesting of how long does this conversation go forth? What's the backlash? What is the, realignment and them coming out and talking about it? But either way, we're heading down the line here where Xbox Gold memberships, they're out of the way. They're going to be gone. So we all do need to prepare for that sooner than later. It's going to happen.
Agreed.
Well, I take a look at everybody. I mean, this is one as well. Parris and Gary said it very well, and I'm sure everybody listening, right? We can be the dog chasing our tail around and around. It's all speculation, right? That's a lot of these conversations here in this industry, especially with rumors, things breaking down, nobody in front of this. It is all speculation. Unfortunately, we can only give you our opinions, what we think. We want to hear from all of you and know what you guys think, right? Are you already on Game Pass and you don't even think about this? Are you an Xbox Live Gold member and you're saying to yourself, Mike, Parris, Gary, what the heck is going on? I am frustrated with this. And how long does that really last? Because we've always had the conversation here at Kind of Funny, right? And all gamers, vote with your wallets, right? We talk all the time about, hey, I'm mad about this or I'm not happy about this. But then we still continue to open up our wallet and give these people money. And I understand sometimes we have to do it, right? But at the same time, when does this lead to change? And it will be very interesting to see if this is a moment of change at all, or is it never going to be one?
Yeah, I agree. One thing I just want to add to this, because we're having this conversation right now, and I feel like it's a really good one. It's a very respectful one, giving our feedback. I would just hope that people are watching or listening to this as well. Absolutely give your feedback. Xbox wants to hear your feedback. They're gonna want to know what you think about this, but just be respectful about it. You know what I mean? Because it's business. Things happen. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, one thing I've always respected about Xbox is they want to hear what you think, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So just be respectful about it. Let them know that you don't like it. If you don't, let them know if you love it. If you do, but just be respectful, because it's definitely some good people over there, and it may not necessarily be their decision. So who knows? We'll see.
We would like to take a moment and thank our sponsors for this week's episode, Purple Mattresses. Throw some bedding on a bunch of different mattresses, and sure, they'll all look alike. The same goes for pillows, but peel away the layers, look at what's inside, and you'll see they aren't all created equal. And that's what makes every Purple pillow and mattress unlike anything you've ever slept on. The Purple Grid sets the Purple mattress apart from every other mattress. It's a patented comfort technology that instantly adapts to your body's natural shape and sleep style. Purple's proprietary technology has been innovating comfort for over 15 years, and Joey and Tim can attest. Joey loves her Purple mattress because it was shipped right to her door and it was fun to unpack, and in her words, is super comfy, like the dream of sleeping on clouds. Also, Tim has a Purple pillow and loves how it keeps his head cool throughout the night. You can try every Purple product risk-free with free shipping and returns. And Purple has financing available as low as 0% APR for qualified customers. Experience the Purple Grid and you'll sleep like never before. Go to purple.com/kindoffunny10 and use promo code kindoffunny10. For a limited time, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. That's purple.com/kindafunny10, promo code kindafunny10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Terms apply. Very well said, Parris, to end that one. Be respectful to your fellow human being. No doubt about that. Let's talk about some fun news that came out this week. Of course, we had a big Resident Evil showcase, guys. And of course, Resident Evil 8 is on the way, whether you call it Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village. I really don't care. But either way, we got a new Resident Evil game coming out. And that means it's time to get spooky, scary, and have some fun. So we want to give a first big shout out to our good friend over at What's Good Games, Brittany Brombacher, for absolutely crushing her hosting gig with the Capcom team. Brittany, you were incredible. Me, Parris, and Gary, and Barrett, and all the Kind of Funny crew. We loved live reacting. We loved watching you. Great job out there. But now let's get into it. Capcom came out and showed us about 5 minutes of new gameplay for Resident Evil 8. We got to see a lot. We got to learn a lot. And of course, the biggest one is the release date, May 7th, 2021, my birthday. So I'm going to give a big shout out to Capcom for acknowledging that. Thank you, Capcom. I appreciate you always. But one of the biggest ones here that kind of caught a lot of the Kind of Funny team by surprise as I was on the live react panel there is this game is going to be released on the old gen hardware. Before, it was just touted as PS5, Xbox Series consoles. Now it's saying it's going to come out on the old hardware as well. It's going to return with Ethan Winters as the main character searching a scary castle for his lost daughter. It will return to the first-person perspective and is also introducing a block and maybe even a counter mechanic similar to what you might see in the Soulsborne games. Parris, Gary, I'm going to pose the question to both of you. I'll start with Gary right now. We've seen the Cyberpunk thing, and I think a lot of people still have a bad taste in their mouth, and we look back at it and we go, oh my gosh, you're talking about old generation consoles. Are you crazy? We got to move forward. Is this something that upsets you, Gary, knowing that Resident Evil 8, the big marquee title for Capcom coming out this year, is releasing on the old generations of consoles?
No, it doesn't upset me at all, and I'm not too worried about the Cyberpunk thing. I think Cyberpunk was a one-off. You know, I don't know if there have been any other examples. Yeah, you know, as we are now in this new cross-gen era of, like, you know, a PlayStation 4 or 5 game or an Xbox One plus a Series X game, you know, a cross-platform game, cross-generation game where, like, it really didn't work well on the old on the older hardware. Cyberpunk has been a one-off, and it was terrible. It was really bad. It was a really high-profile game, and it barely functioned on those platforms. But that's not the norm. That was a really weird outlier. So I'm not terribly worried about that happening going forward. I think, you know, Capcom know what they're doing. They've been making these games for a long time. And if it were purely me, if I were being completely selfish, yeah, I would prefer that they just completely optimize and put all their resources behind, you know, the next gen hardware, because that's the hardware that I'm fortunate enough to be playing on. But at the same time, most you have to remember, most gamers out there don't have the next gen hardware. There is a massive install base of last gen hardware out there right now. Gamers are still going to be playing on them for a long time. I mean, how many years were people still playing PlayStation 2 games after the PlayStation 3 came out? People were still playing PlayStation 2 games and buying and selling them when the PlayStation 4 was out, because the install base was so massive. It made sense to keep making games and serving that very big market. Not every gamer is like us, where as soon as the new hardware comes out, we're like, oh, I can't even look at that last gen hardware. You're dead to me. I only care about the new shiny thing. A lot of people are still very happy with their what is now last gen hardware, and are going to be playing games on them for a long time. So I think it's the right move. I'm not expecting any kind of Cyberpunk type debacle. I really do think that was a one-off. And, you know, it's always interesting to see the differences as well. When the games come out, a Digital Foundry will always go do their thing. Here's, you know, the last gen version versus the next gen version. You can kind of it's a nice way to see how much of a leap forward the next gen hardware represents at this point. So I think it's the right move. You know, get the games into as many hands, into hands as many gamers as possible. I fully expect the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of Resident Evil 8 to be really good. Not as good as the next gen versions, obviously. They're never going to be, but certainly nothing like the catastrophe that we saw with Cyberpunk. I hope, you know, touch wood, that we'll never see anything like that again.
For me, before I get to Parris over there, it is an interesting conversation. I kind of gawked at Tim Gettys during the live reaction, because he wants this just to be straight up next gen, right? He wants all the resources there. He wants this to be the biggest and baddest. And I think we do sometimes need to take a step back and understand we are only 3 months into this console generation, right? It's hard to say that this is the new gen versus the old gen because we are in that gray area of this is so new. This is X amount of weeks old. We're not there yet. The install base isn't there yet. And a big one I tried to state is not only is the install base there, but this is one of Capcom's, a third-party company, marquee titles, and this has to be sold to everyone everywhere.
Hell,
right?
even
This
like
is a very
even like the main guys, even Xbox and PlayStation are still doing like cross-gen releases. Like you can't like have that and then expect the third parties to also just focus on the new gen. You know.
Listen, I love Gettys, but he's off his rocker if he thinks that Capcom is not going to service the biggest markets that are out there right now. You want to talk about anti-consumer moves? You think that we're throwing a toys out of our pram right now because Microsoft added $1 to the cost of a month on Xbox Live. Well, you imagine if Capcom had come out and said, "Sorry, PlayStation 4 fans, this one ain't for you. It's only for people that have the bleeding edge hardware." And guess what? Even if you have the money for a PlayStation 5, you can't get in right now because we're supply constrained. You can't even buy the hardware. And again, I'm not a software engineer, but my guess is that whatever bonus they would get to the next gen versions by just devoting all of their resources to that would be negligible compared to to the money they would be giving up by not serving what remains and will remain for a long time the biggest chunk of the console market, which is the existing last gen hardware. My guess is we're probably not going to be until 2022 and maybe even longer until you start seeing game companies releasing games exclusively on PlayStation 5 and Series X and basically saying, yeah, we're done with the old consoles. There's too many of them out there to abandon them this quickly.
Really quick, Parris, before I let you get into it, I want to make sure we don't go bash Tim, right? He just wants to see his favorite. He wants to see his favorite franchise succeed. And I love that about Tim, right? I appreciate that about Tim, but we are in this gray area and it is time. But it's very interesting to have this conversation because it's funny. Next week, the Medium releases. And guess what the Medium is? That is only on a Series X and S. That will not be releasing on the ones. So it is tough to have this weird back and forth talk that we're having. But Resident Evil, a mega franchise in my eyes, has to be everywhere. And the one that I tried to say to Tim and the team is what's important to me is day one, it better have that optimization patch, right? I understand if we have to feed every single console, make sure everything's there. But a big important piece is if you're on the next gen hardware, you want to see those next gen capabilities of these games and consoles. And Hitman has done a terrific job. Hitman released last week. Guess what was on that? That nice optimization badge on your Xbox Series X and S. And guess what? It also did phenomenally on the Xbox Ones, the PS4s, the PS5s, and the Xbox Series consoles. So we have seen that IO Interactive can make a game for all generations. You have to expect that Capcom can do the same thing. Parris, where do you fall here on a giant game title being on all generations? Are you okay with this? Do you want them to put all the resources in?
Selfishly, I would love to just see next gen only versions, but I get it. I didn't even go into kind of what Gary was saying. I wasn't expecting to see quote unquote next gen only games until 2022 anyways, especially on the third party side for exactly what you're saying. I mean, there's 150 million plus old gen consoles out there. They are not abandoning that user base that quickly. It just doesn't make financial sense. So of course, Resident Evil 8 is going to be on old gen consoles as well as the new ones. I would say, going back to what you're saying with the Medium, you are going to see these one-off cases where like the Medium is taking advantage of the SSD drive to have the multiple levels. Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 5, as an example, is doing the same thing, where it simply can't run on old gen hardware. So of course you're only going to play it on the new ones. But if Resident Evil 8, which I assume when it went into development, it was being developed for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, so of course they would put them out on that hardware because it runs on it. Same with like on the PlayStation side, same with Horizon Forbidden West and like Halo Infinite as an example, are going to be on the old hardware because they were developed initially on that hardware. So it makes financial sense. It's a consumer friendly move because it just allows more people to play it. And heck, as long as the game is fun, who cares, right? But like you said, Mike, I do think we're reaching a point now that these type of games need to be quote unquote optimized for the next gen hardware from day one to take advantage of all the extra horsepower, get it to 60 frames per second. Maybe they could throw some ray tracing in there on potential titles, etc. Because, you know, we have these new gen consoles that can do so many amazing things. You want to be able to take advantage as much as you can, even if it is still on old gen hardware.
No
I just
doubt
want to
about
add as
that.
well. I actually didn't know about the medium being new gen only. That's interesting. So I'll happily stand corrected on my prediction that we wouldn't be seeing new gen only games until 2022. Clearly in some isolated cases that is already happening with the medium. And you just mentioned Ratchet and Clank as well. I think on certain titles it sounds like we are going to see that. I guess what I'll kind of retool my statement to say instead is then that's not going to be anything close to the norm until like 2022 or even farther out, because again, it's just bad business to not serve those consoles. If I was a developer on the medium, I'd maybe be excited about the fact that I've been able to kind of lean into harnessing putting all our efforts into the next gen hardware, because we don't have to worry about serving those older machines. And again, maybe like Cyberpunk, they just are not viable on those machines. We just CD Projekt learned that that game's not viable on old gen hardware too late. And so, I think more developers now realizing, our ambitions for the game now outstrip what's possible on the older hardware. It's also a bit of a shame though, because there just aren't that many, relatively speaking, there aren't that many Series X's and PlayStation 5s out there, because it's a brand new system. We have supply chain issues. They just aren't. They can't put enough into the even people that have the lid thing, but they're $500. I want to give you my money, Sony and Microsoft. I want to buy a console. They can't buy one right now, and so the medium and later Ratchet and Clank is going to come out on a very limited install base, because they're not supporting those that massive install base of older systems. So this is an economic question that every developer and publisher is going to have to ask themselves over the next year or two. At what point do we decide to leave those old systems behind? And I feel like that's only going to be when there are enough new systems out there that's a mature enough base that they don't feel like that they can fully lean into it. But do you really want to put all your chips on developing a game for a relatively small install base of new gen hardware, or do you want to also make a lot of money by compromising a game just a little bit, but still a very good game on the massive 100 million plus consoles that are already out in the last gen ecosystem? Financially, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's really funny. I have two ones for you, of course. Keeping it with Xbox, Microsoft Flight Simulator has been talked about on the Xbox Series X and S, and there's kind of this rumbling of well, will it be on the ones? And some people are saying the developers are trying to put it on the ones. There's no actual confirmation of it will be on the last gen from what I've heard. Parris, have you heard something different?
No, it's funny you say that, because and now maybe I'm going off of Twitter rumors or something, but I thought it was confirmed to not be on the old gen hardware, that it was an X and S only game.
I believe, yeah.
And having played it on the PC, it is highly resource intensive. So it would not shock me at all for them to just can it and not have it on the Xbox One at all.
Exactly. Like Gary was saying, we're going to have these one-offs, right? Where these games are too powerful or so forth and stuff like that. And then you have Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is going to be on the next gen. Could they make it on the old gen? Is that too much time and resources? My question then would be, when we move towards the xCloud, can we put xCloud on these consoles for the ones and have these people still be able to play these new Series X titles via cloud streaming? Is that the next generation? Is that the next move?
I think that's a logical step, isn't it? Because I know Phil Spencer had even said at one point that right now xCloud is running on Xbox One hardware, right? But at some point this year, I believe, they are going to switch over to the Series XS hardware for xCloud. So you would think at that point, that keeps the old Xbox One hardware viable, because now it can become a cloud streaming box, as an example. So you can take advantage of some of the next gen features because you're just streaming it over to cloud. I would hope, anyways. It just seems like a logical thing to do.
Yeah, we're gonna reach some tipping point probably later this year or early next, where we stop talking. Yeah, we still talk about these systems as next gen systems on new gen. I get certainly, but they're not next gen systems. They are now the current gen. They are what we have. It's just that they're massively outstripped in terms of install base by the older systems. And it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. For every medium or Ratchet and Clank or a next gen exclusive title that comes out there, the more you're going to start pushing that existing old gen install base users to going, well, shit, I better get a next gen system now, because the library of games that are now becoming inaccessible to me because they're only for next gen, that's growing and growing. And we will reach some kind of tipping point where, people start selling or abandoning their old gen systems and getting on board the new ones. Again, this is all massively complicated by the fact that even a lot of people who want to buy the next gen system currently can't do it because of the supply constraints. But I imagine by the end of this year, that will have sorted itself out, and you'll start to see us getting closer and closer to some kind of tipping point. And we'll know it when we see it. We'll know it when it happens, when it's like, the old gen's basically gone away. There's still the FIFAs and the Maddens and the games that always sell, like even going back multiple generations. They'll probably continue to come out for some time, but you're going to start to see more and more developers and publishers starting to move away from the old gen systems as the newer gen install base matures, and it just makes more economic sense to focus on the new gen. My prediction for that is probably late this year, early next. You'll start to see that real tipping point come into play, but certainly not anywhere anytime really soon.
All right. Well, circling back now to Resident Evil, of course, we have the return of Ethan Winters, who was the main character in Resident Evil 7. Imran Khan jumped in the middle of our live reaction and said, Ethan Winters is the worst character here, right? And so it's funny. I know a lot of Resident Evil fans are kind of torn, but you could say there's two camps, but there's people that love Resident Evil 2 through 4, and we're getting those remakes, right? And they really want 4, the remake. Now you have 8 being with Ethan. Where do you guys fall in your Resident Evil gameplay? Are you a diehard original guy fan with Jill and Leon, and you're like, yo, we got to continue this storyline, give me the remake to 4, and then maybe continue it? Or are you okay and on board with this new turn that they've taken with Ethan, and then maybe probably a new main character down the line? Or is it a blend of both? Because for me, right, I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I've loved Resident Evil. I love that they've done the remakes, and I think they're doing great justice to that. And I think everybody wants 4. Of course, it's not even a think. I know they want 4. But I am having so much fun on this new gen, or this new generation of Resident Evil. With 7 was a ton of fun. Sure, I didn't like the ending at the end, but I'm really excited to continue on and check out something new. We've done the old. I'm ready for something new. Where do you guys fall on that kind of stuff?
I think I should go first on this one. And so get out the finger of shame. I've not played a Resident Evil game since 2.
Wow. That's a long time, Parris. That's a lot of games, man. That's a lot of games.
I presume you're referring to the original 2, not the remake, right?
I'm speaking of the original.
Wow.
It's just not been a franchise that has ever grabbed me enough to invest in. And I get people love it. So this isn't even a thing of like, oh, Resident Evil sucks or anything like that. I understand its popularity, but it's just, I've never played it. So even with this one coming out, I will say it has me interested, wanting to play it, seeing the gameplay and seeing, the whole lady. But other than that, I mean, I've just not been into that franchise at all.
Okay, Gary. I mean, Parris with a poll. I did not see that coming from Parris. But you know what? Everybody's a gamer. You can enjoy the games you like. If that's not you, keep it moving. Gary, what about you? Where do you fall on the Resident Evil spectrum here?
I'm actually in a similar boat to Parris here. Let me just say it right out now. Outright, fuck horror games. I'm not playing. I'm not having horror games in my house. They're too scary. The last one I played was Fatal Frame 2 on the PlayStation 2. And when I found out that game fucks with you even when it's paused, I was done. I'm done with this genre. I'm never playing these games again. That was the last one I played. I'm not, my wife likes scary games. And in fact, she did play all through the Resident Evil 2 remake, which is great, by the way. But I watched her play it while hiding behind the couch cushions. I have a particular problem with zombies as well. That's my issue. Somebody gave me a VHS tape of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead when I was like 10 years old, and my parents let me watch it, and it fucked me for life. I've had nightmares about zombies ever since. It's my big, super scary phobia. Like I just, anything with like the kind of the ones that run around like the 28 Days Later or the Zack Snyder remake zombies that run around, I'm fine with those. But the slow lumbering ones that just kind of close in on you, like the Walking Dead type ones, fuck that. I can't do it. Like they scared me when I was like 10 years old. They like a deep fear of zombies like buried deep inside my brain. And Resident Evil, those kind of games, I just can't play them. It was hard for me sometimes even for me to watch my wife play Resident Evil 2. So it's not a genre. We tried to play a little bit of Resident Evil 7. Again, it was like, once we got inside the house, it was like, man, this is too fucking scary. Like some people really, really like being scared. Some people really like horror games, and good for them. And it's a great genre. And, Silent Hill and Fatal Frame and Resident Evil, it's a great genre for people that like those kind of games. I just can't do them. They're too scary to me. So
Yeah,
Resident Evil is something I know about and admire. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, and it's not even a thing I dislike horror games. Like, I loved Eternal Darkness back in the day, Condemned, like you brought up Silent Hill. I'm a huge Left 4 Dead guy. Just so many Friday nights playing Left 4 Dead. I love that kind of like Back 4 Blood, that beta that came out. Love playing that. So it's not even that. It just Resident Evil never clicked with me. I don't know. I can't explain it.
All right, well, here's to hoping that we get an RE4 remake, because I know everybody and their mother wants that. But also, I'm excited for the future because that RE engine is truly incredible. And speaking about the engine and what we saw, right, we now know that there is a demo out. Of course, it is over on PlayStation 5 exclusively. So sorry, Xbox users, we can't try that. But it is called The Maiden. I did try it over on my PS5, and it is incredible. It is very awesome. It is 18 minutes long. It is a tone. It is a setting starter right there. And being in the castle is so awesome, right? We just left what Gary talked about in Resident Evil 7, where you're in the swamplands. You're in just kind of, we'll call it a mansion, but I called that just a dingy backwood cabin. I didn't call it a mansion, Gary. And so it's very cool to be in the castle and have this setting. There's no combat. It's very short, and it sets the tone for where you're going to be and what you're going to do. And it's a ton of fun. So if you do have a PS5, check it out. It's only 18 minutes. It's a free demo. But they also said that another demo will be released in spring for all platforms. So really cool that they're coming out with the demos. I know Gary loves demos. I love demos. I'm sure Parris loves demos at all. We love checking them out. You know that. Then, of course, we continue on. RE-Verse, a multiplayer component included in Resident Evil 8, will have a beta soon. Now, I know you guys aren't big Resident Evil fans, but you probably know that Resident Evil over the years with Capcom has tried to make multiplayer modes, games, whatever you want to call them. Did you guys watch this announcement? Did you have any thoughts, or should I break down my thoughts since I'm a big multiplayer guy?
I'll just jump in and say this really quick, and it kind of goes on what I said before. I did watch it, and yeah, I mean, if this leans into the kind of the Left 4 Dead type verse multiplayer, some co-op experience, things like that, I'd be interested. I'm definitely interested to check it out and see what it's going to be like.
Parris, I might have some problems for you because I don't think it's going to do that, unfortunately. I think it should do that. From everything that we watched, it's only like 40 seconds, mind you, folks. So this is all speculation. Again, it wasn't much. But we do know there will be a closed beta coming out very soon, or alpha, whatever you want to call it, coming soon. But it had this weird cell shading on it. Didn't look right. And it looked to be placed in the RE2 police station. And it seemed to have 4 players. And it was a free-for-all type look because there was moments where all 4 of them were in the same room shooting at each other. So I think this is going to be some sort of 4-player free-for-all type death mode. Of course, we have no idea until we actually play it and see it. But I will say this. Resident Evil has struggled to find a multiplayer niche that actually works, that gets a lot of like good buzz. There's been a couple that have hit and people have enjoyed, but there's nothing that's long-lasting. I think Parris hit it on the head of like, just make Left 4 Dead 2. Figure out that kind of game mode in your RE world, and let's just go forward with that. They keep coming out with these really weird ones. Last one they had tied to Resident Evil 3, I believe, was the asymmetric. One guy's the mastermind, the other 4 people are running for their lives. And we all know those kind of gameplays are fun and all, but they usually don't last because the community kind of dies off. And be interesting to see why they keep putting all these resources into this and building these multiplayer modes that never really work. So I wonder, what is the multiplayer mode for Resident Evil that will actually work? Left 4 Dead clearly is probably the answer, but is there something different? Is there something unique? Because so far, they're still searching for it in my mind. It's never actually been that good to bring all my friends in.
I've got a couple of thoughts on that. I mean, I wouldn't play it, but other people could knock themselves out with it. One idea that I would like to see is, I played the Back 4 Blood alpha. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I love Left 4 Dead 2 as well. But rather than a thing like a run and gun thing where you're just kind of moving through an environment and kind of passing by zombies, I like the idea of something that might be more akin to a horde mode. Going all the way back to, like, you remember like the Night of the Living Dead, where they're all kind of like boarding up the windows in the farmhouse, and the zombies are like trying to break through. I kind of imagine almost something like that, where you put like a squad of players inside like a farmhouse, and you have to barricade it and seal it off, and you've got like floods of zombies trying to get through. Maybe they break through, so you have to kind of retreat deeper into their house, and kind of that part of the house is now just that's written off, it's gone, and the defensible space is getting smaller and smaller. And maybe it's just a matter of like, how long can you survive? Like, the zombies are always going to win in the end, but like just survive for as long as you can. Like something like that seems like it could be fun. That to me is always kind of the essential scariness of kind of the zombie swarm ideas. Like there's just too many of them. Like they're going to get you eventually, and all you can try and do is survive for as long as you can. So like basically like a simple kind of static horde mode where you've got like a defensible structure, like a big, mansion or a farmhouse or something. Zombies trying to get in through every doorway and window, and you're constantly trying to barricade and retreat deeper inside the house and just try to survive for as long as you can. That feels kind of very on brand for like a classic zombie type experience. Maybe something like that would be fun.
So like leaning into kind of what Undead Labs is doing, like with State of Decay. Something like that.
But I feel like in a smaller, even State of Decay is a world that you can move around.
Right.
I'm thinking about like this would be like more like a one location, stay in the location. Again, kind of similar to Gears of War Horde mode, like defend this position, defend this post. But more kind of civilians with shotguns and shovels rather than Gears with heavy weaponry. It's still like the idea of like barricading and boarding up windows and things like that. I just want that classic, like the third act of Night of the Living Dead, when they're stuck in that farmhouse and the zombies are kind of getting in through every window. I think that would be really scary and fun.
All right. That's a good idea. I mean, Call of Duty has perfected the zombies in their minds, right? With the boarding up windows and surviving for a long time. So it is kind of that blend that you could find, but it is interesting to have this announcement of Resident Evil 8 and the release date and then being like, hey, we have another multiplayer mode. And I know I groaned because I've seen them just kind of flop with these multiplayer modes. And it's weird to be like, oh man, what are we doing now? And see the cell shade, see the possible 4-player free-for-all. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if this is the answer, y'all. But also, I will say this. If you do a smaller, condensed free-for-all thing, that means the community will have a longer lasting lifespan because you won't require 5+ people, a lot of people to do that. So it will maybe last a little longer, but we'll find out. There's a closed alpha coming soon, as I said. To round out the end of the Resident Evil Showcase, of course, we saw a crossover, a very weird crossover, if I do say so myself, with the Division 2. So right now, if you log on the yes, Gary Whitta, that's what I said too, Gary.
Ubisoft likes to crossover with a bunch. They've crossed over with Final Fantasy. They've done a bunch of weird shit. Okay, this isn't the craziest thing.
This is a weird one because the Division 2 for me is just so old. So right now, log in between February 2nd to the 15th to receive a Leon Kennedy RPD outfit in the Division 2. Parris, I saw you give me the look, right? But tell me what you think, because I'm over here like. The Division 2, we played it. The raid beat us all down. Nobody ever went back. It was over, right? Are you coming back for this specific
100%,
costume?
100%. 100% I'm coming back for it. To me, this is just a great excuse to jump back into the Division 2. Look, and not to turn this into the Division podcast, but
I'd be down for that though. I love the Division.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan of the first one. I'm a fan of the second one, and I think something like this would be cool to revisit it because I think it's pretty clear that Massive will start to scale down that world as they move on to a galaxy far, far away. So, I'm definitely looking forward to playing this. It'll be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we'll get a good player boost for sure to go in there. But this isn't something I'm like, oh, I needed this, Tell me.
Mike, I just want to make sure I didn't embarrass myself. When I was talking about that idea for like a farmhouse defense kind of zombie horde mode thing, did I just accidentally describe what Call of Duty Zombies already is?
Yes,
Because I've never played
Gary,
it.
I didn't want to say it, but you word for word described Call of Duty Zombies. Just so everybody out there in the comments knows,
I have various blind spots in my video game knowledge, but I have a very good reason for that one. Like, because again, I won't go anywhere near anything to do with zombies. So if that already exists, that's great. I'm so glad it's out there. Like I said, I will never play it. So the reason that's a very specific reason why I have that blind spot. I won't go anywhere near any video games that have zombies in them. But that's cool though. I'm glad that's out there.
Well, we'll see what they do in the future because this is a big title and they clearly are trying multiplayer. So let's see what they do moving forward. Guys, that concludes the Resident Evil Showcase. Brittany Brombacher once again absolutely killed it. We were so proud and happy for her. But last week, a couple weeks now, a lot of people have been asking, hey guys, Xbox and the Xbox Wire team put out a list of 30 games exclusively launching on the Xbox in 2021. When are we going to talk about it? And I know it's been a crazy couple of weeks with different pieces, so I thought we'd just take a couple of minutes, maybe 10 or 15, and let's look at this list, talk about some of the things we're excited for, and look at the future of Xbox in 2021. So coming from the Xbox Wire by Will Tuttle, who is incredible over with that team, they actually shared an awesome article detailing 30 announced games that will launch on the console exclusives or as console exclusives for Xbox Series X and S and the Xbox One. Now, there's a long list, so I'm going to name off all 30 really quick. I've given you all blurbs. You guys can point out one or two that we want to talk about after I circle back. But just to give you a quick rundown, you have Adeoye, The Artful Escape, The Ascent, The Big Con, Crossfire X, Dead Static Drive, Echo Generation, Exomecha, can't wait to talk about that one, Exo 1, The Gunk, Halo Infinite, The Last Stop, Lake, Little Witch in the Woods, The Medium, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Psychonauts 2, RPG Time, Sable, Scorn, She Dreams Elsewhere, Shredders, Song of Iron, Tunic, 12 Minutes, Unexplored, The Wayfarer's Legacy 2, Warhammer 4K Dark Tide, Away to the Woods, The Wild at Heart, the Yakuza Remastered Collection. And yes, I know audio listeners and viewers out there, you probably say, Mike, that was just 30 words you jammed together. I don't know what you're talking about. First off, go check out the Xbox Wire blog post. You can check that out. You can read the nice little blurbs about it. I've given the team them. I'll start really quick because there's a couple that catch my eye that I was actually surprised upon. And one I really want to talk about is actually the first title, which is pretty exciting. It's called Adeoye. And guys, Gary, I think you're really going to like this one because it has a really cool write-up. The art style, a little different, probably not like the biggest, fanciest, but the write-up is actually pretty cool. So Adeoye is a cinematic first-person game about sticking to a complicated decision. You have decided that you're no longer okay with letting the mob use your pigs to dispose of bodies. When your old friend, a hitman, arrives with his assistant to deliver another body, you finally tell them that you're done. Gary, I liked this because for some reason, it struck a chord with me. I'm like, oh man, I got to tell the mob that I'm done working with them. I don't want to keep disposing of their bodies, and they're not going to like that. So how am I going to get out of it?
Is that something from your personal life that
you've
done?
Yeah,
That's why
I always really like. I always really like games that I can personally relate to. So this is I'm interested to get into this one.
This struck a chord with me. You know, I got a giant farm up here in Tahoe. Who knows what's happening? No, I just thought this felt like the mobster movie, right? I liked this write-up. I took a look at it, and this is one of those, when we look at this list of 30 games, these are not all going to be giant AAA games, right? A lot of these are indies into the middle of AA's, and they're not going to look the prettiest, the fanciest. But I love these story ideas, and these are the games that I want to try. These are the games I want to branch out with and get away from the Call of Duties, the big AAA titles that we always see. And so, Gary, I thought this one might be for you with the mob story and having to stick to this hard decision that you saw on this list that you liked.
Sorry, really quick, Mike. You froze up there for a couple of seconds.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. That's all right. Well, let's go. Gary, what'd you think of Adeoye? And then tell me one game off the list you like.
Yeah, so I mean, it's you know, I haven't seen a single screenshot. I have no idea what Adeoye looks like or plays like. I don't know what the gameplay mechanic is, but based on that paragraph, I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah,
you know, I'm a story guy, so I always gravitate towards games that have a strong narrative thread or an interesting, story premise or an interesting world or a character. And yeah, when's the last time you saw a paragraph describing a game that read anything like the one that you just laid out? So that's definitely of interest to me. Did you also ask what else on this list popped for me?
Yeah, why don't you give me one that might have popped for you if you saw?
So, and again, I'm looking at, in general, I tend to gravitate less towards the big AAA ones, although I like those games too, and more towards kind of the smaller indie side. We all know that 12 Minutes is potentially going to be really interesting. I mentioned to you before, I'm really looking at, I like the look of Lake. Lake looks like something really interesting. Again, you take on the role of 40-something Meredith Weiss, who returns from the big city to her quiet hometown. Again, I can imagine a time not long ago when the idea of that as the premise for a video game, a 40-year-old woman returning to her hometown, would have been unthinkable. But now we have this whole really vibrant indie scene that is out there exploring, kind of really, just different concepts like that, where again, because the budget behind the game is smaller, the financial expectation is smaller, and so you can take more creative risks and you can do stuff that's like, not everyone has to be like a grizzled space marine out for revenge or the kind of cookie cutter stuff that we see in the AAA space all the time. So Lake is a good example of just in general the kind of games that I'm seeing on this list. And thank God that Xbox has this really great indie department and a great kind of a very vibrant indie ecosystem that allows games like this to flourish. Those are the kind of games that I'm going to be looking for in 2021. These Xbox exclusives that just present an interesting character, an interesting world, something that you don't see every day. I love the fact that we're seeing more and more games like this.
Yeah, the Lake is a great poll, Gary, and I think everybody's going to be really cool with that one. Of course, to round that out, it says she exchanges her busy career at a software company to fill in for her dad, the local mail carrier. So if you want to drive around a beautiful, stunning world and just kind of deliver mail, I think you're going to have a good time with the lake, which is exciting.
That's what I want to do. I just want to chill out and
Just
deliver mail and
chill.
talk to some people, maybe uncover. There's probably a murder mystery or some supernatural shit that's going to happen. But honestly, even if it was just, hey, do you want to live the life of like a 40-something mail carrier on a quiet a quiet idyllic island? Yeah. Why do you think Animal Crossing was the biggest game of last year? Because that's what we want. We just want to escape and live a nice quiet life in video games.
Parris, I saw you looking at the list. Why don't you give me 1, 2, 3, whatever big titles you saw that you really like off this?
I'm going to give you 3, and I'll focus on 1.
Nice.
Psychonauts 2 is a no-brainer. I mean, Tim Schafer's Double Fine. I mean, that's, if you haven't played the original, please do, because you'll love it. So definitely excited for that. Another one would be Scorn, which is kind of, it looks like it's a first-person horror adventure game, set in, the whatever, I don't even know how to describe it, future world or whatever, but it looked really cool when they showed it off. So I'm interested in that. And then the one I'm most interested in is Echo Generation, which is a turn-based RPG, but it's set in the 90s and kind of looks like a combination of Stranger Things meets Stand By Me meets the Goonies. I'm in. That is, and like I said, it has that retro 8-bit, 16-bit kind of look for the graphics. Because they showed that the first time, I want to say it was the game showcase over the summer in the pre-show. And it just always stood out to me. So it was great to see that on the list. And I'm definitely looking forward to finding out more about that.
We're showing it for the kids right now. And it's really interesting to see this like 1632-bit in like a 3D space. And then having the art background. It's really pretty. Holy crap.
Yeah,
that's really great. It almost looks a little. The closest thing that I can even think of on the Xbox right now that looks like this is The Tourist, but this is a little more like slightly different. But again, like 2D, 3D. What a great look for this game. I love it. We're just seeing so many different. I remember when video games basically all looked the same, and now we see so many different aesthetics, so many different styles. Stuff like this is it's just a great time to be into video games, and when we're seeing stuff like this coming through the pipeline.
It's awesome. So I'll give my couple final ones that I want to give a nod to. The Artful Escape. I know everybody's very excited about that. It has a very cool art style you should check out. For me, as a big, shooter fan, a massive multiplayer fan, Exomecha looks absolutely atrocious graphically wise, but I'm very excited about it because you know what? There's giant mech robots. There's giant dino robots. You're on the ground in like a Halo mech suit. You're going to be shooting at people, driving up on people. That's the kind of stuff I love. And I think Gary will really identify with this. I think Parris will too. I miss Tribes. I grew up with Tribes and I love Tribes.
Yeah.
And I want Tribes. And this game gave me the little bit of hint of like, ooh, Tribes, I miss you so much, and I wanted to give that one a nice shout out.
I used to be hooked on Tribes back in the day. I would love something like that to come back.
Keep it going on. I want to give some love to Shredders. You guys know I'm a big extreme sports fan. I know you guys love SSX Tricky back in the day. And Shredders, I just got to read this. Inspired by the classic snowboarding game Amped, Shredder puts you at the top of the coolest slopes, free ride spots, and snow parks, aiming to recreate the sheer joy of riding down a mountain. Shredders is my type of game, right? Like that's what I want to do.
And I had a blast playing the back-compatible remaster of SSX3 last year. I just loved it. Amped is it's funny. I had not thought about Amped in the longest time, but we were talking about like old, Microsoft, old first-party titles that we want to bring back. Like I think Amped just came out at the wrong time. It was a good game, but it got largely forgotten. It got kind of steamrolled by the SSX titles that are out around the same time. But like we haven't had a good like shredding like down the mountainside game in a long time, and now with next with what's going to be possible with Series X and S, man, I want to see what that game looks like. That's going to be exciting.
Can't wait for it. Give a big shout out to Tunic. We've all seen that at multiple shows before. Yeah. Tunic is the Zelda-like game that you're a fox, and this game is cute, cool, and we're just waiting for it now.
I've been waiting so long. I was working at IGN when they announced this shit, and I've been waiting ever since.
And the one I want to finish on is something that is beautiful, cool, and I think caught the eyes of many when it was showed up at a show, and that is Way to the Woods. A deer and fawn must embark on a journey through an abandoned world of the unknown to get home. A third-person action game solo developed by Anthony Tan, featuring music from Avi and I'm going to mispronounce this one, Sarasu, composers for the show Steven Universe, unveil the mystery of Cat Town, evade a hoarding pack of wolves, and find your light to explore a world filled with the relics of the old gods' humanity. And this is one, when you see this, bang, it gives you the goosebumps, it gives you the feels, because it looks beautiful and it is awe-inspiring.
Oh man, it looks gorgeous. My first time seeing
check
it.
this one out. Yeah, this is one, when they showed it at the show, I think caught a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah,
and I've watched the trailer for the past couple of weeks, and these are the games, right, Parris, that we talk about when they say, hey, we got 30 games exclusively launching on our console, and you're like, oh my God, 30 AAA games. No, it's not really like that. There's some incredible AA indie games that they want to spotlight, and these are the games that deserve the love, right? That deserve to be shown, because we know about the AAA Halo Infinites, the Mediums, these big bad games that are coming. We know about those, but sometimes we got to shine a light on these beautiful games, and this is one I want to make sure people see and, give a try to. If it comes out on Game Pass, there's no excuse, right? You got to download this and give it a try.
This is what makes gaming so great right now, not just on Xbox, but across the whole ecosystem. There's been this wonderful flourishing of the independent scene. Honestly, if you said to me right now, you can spend the next 2 years playing nothing but AAA games or nothing but indie games, I hate to sound like a hipster, but I think I'd go the indie route. There's just so much amazing stuff out there.
No doubt.
And just a wider variety of game styles and storytelling ideas, and so much AAA stuff has become kind of homogenized over the years, and a lot of it looks and feels the same. But on the indie side, you just never. It's like indie games like a box of chocolates, Mike. That's what my mother always used to say. You never know what you're gonna get.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say on that, just going on what you're saying, Gary. Like Spiritfarer is a game that I've played the last half of 2020, and not to make this an emotional show, but it deals with death. And I lost my mother earlier this year. So playing through that game, it really hit me from a story standpoint and what
my
it was
wife
saying.
got choked up a couple of times playing that game.
Yeah. And you get that at the indie level where they can tell stories like that, where they may not necessarily take the risk of telling a story like that for a big AAA high budget game. So yeah, you gotta love indie games. I love looking at this list and seeing that, sure, there's the few AAA ones in there, but it's those small, that's why I brought up Echo Generation. Those are the kind of games that wind up being the hidden gems that you can really fall in love with as a gamer.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
no doubt.
To it.
And to end out our show, people will probably be like, but Xbox has no games, Parris. There's never any games coming to Xbox. When are we going to get video games? And so there's been some murmurs. There's been some rumors. There's been some talk in the background, right? Some whispers through the grapevine that there could be more unannounced games coming in 2021. Of course, we had a good friend of the show, Jeffy Grub, on the show from VentureBeat. And Jeff said there could possibly be a Forza Horizon 5 release this year. He blinked at the camera a couple times. I didn't know if he was saying yes or no, but he kind of said and alluded to that he thinks there could be a Forza Horizon game releasing before the Forza Motorsports platform game that we saw before, and he may or may not know the setting. Our good friend Jez Gordon over from the Xbox 2 podcast, good friends of mine, Randall Thor and Jez, if you haven't listened to the Xbox 2 podcast, go check it out. He says that he knows about 2 unannounced games that he believes will be released in 2021. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to spoil the fun. But there we go. We start to lead into it of well, could there be more games, Parris? Could we have something bigger come out at the end of the year? So when you look at these 30 games, and I think a lot of people in the comments will start to get after me of hey, Mike, these aren't AAA bangers like PlayStation. Why don't we ever have games? And so when we look at that, what do we think? What could these games possibly be rumored or hinted at? Could we get another big announcement?
Oh, I'm pretty sure we will. And hopping on the speculation train, if you look at the fact that Halo Infinite got delayed a year, it was never meant to come out this holiday. Clearly, there was something on the roadmap that was supposed to be the big game of this holiday. While I do think Forza Horizon is most likely a game that comes this year, there's something else. There's something else big. This was before Bethesda, all that. They have something else that they were most likely planning to drop this holiday, and maybe they're just holding on to it until whatever the quote-unquote E3 replacement is going to be, this
Parris,
summer.
Is this the year? Is this the year where our boy Banjo comes back?
Okay, see, I don't want to jinx
he doesn't
it.
He already did it last week. We can't do it. We can't keep doing it. We got to put it out there once.
I call it on a previous show. I said there's going to be a Banjo announcement this year. I already laid down that marker.
Yeah, and
That's
I
what
think
I
last week was also that same episode where I called you crazy.
I'll have a cash bet with you, Barrett. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is.
I have to say though, going back to the last time we were actually at an E3 was E3 2019, and shout out to Khalif Adams because we were sitting together in the audience, and he absolutely hates banjo. And I don't know what's wrong with him. It's
now I want it to come out even more just because it will piss him off.
His cooking fumes are getting to his head. You know?
Parris, that's right. Bad cooking, bad takes on banjo. Khalif, what are you doing over there, bro?
But we sat there, and I was convinced banjo was coming. I was like, they're going to announce it. They're showing it. And I think, the Switch? I think that's all we got. It was Smash Brothers. That's all we got. Mm-hmm. That was that. So please, I just want it. You have this great IP. Just bring it back, please. That's all I want.
There you go.
So it's a good point that you make, though, Parris, as well, that Halo has now been kind of repositioned as like one of the big flagship games for 2021. But up until quite recently, it wasn't. They must already have had other plans for 2021 in place, given these games take years to develop. We've still got whatever, virtual E3 or other big announcements that we're going to see. We'll see another big summer of games. If you think that list that we just went through is like it for 2021 exclusives for Xbox, you're kidding yourself. There's more big stuff coming for sure. We're 3 weeks into the year. It's very, very early. I completely brace agree. Yourself for more, for sure.
Well, thank you both for ending it just like that. Go check out the Xbox Wire blog post because it details all of them. You can go check out the YouTube videos just like we did and watch some of them and get excited about what's coming in the future for 2021 here on Xbox. Just some quick heads up for you before we leave. We have some free play days this weekend. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and WWE 2K Battlegrounds are all available for Xbox Live Gold and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members to play from Thursday, January 21st through Sunday, January 24th. So take advantage of the free play weekend. Of course, Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning, a very well-regarded RPG game. People love that one. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Who doesn't want to play with Johnny Bernthal and the gang with those ghosts out there? 4-player co-op, tons of fun. WWE 2K Battlegrounds. Interesting to see what people think of that one. Now we also have the February Games with Gold lineup right in front of us. We have 5 games this month. So Gears 5 will be available February 1st to the 28th. Resident Evil will be available February 1st to the 28th. Dandra, I'm sorry for mispronouncing that one. Trials of Fear Edition, February 16th to March 15th. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. Whoa, an indie game.
That's a good one.
Pretty interesting there. February 15th or 1st to the 15th. And Lost Planet 2, available February 16th to February 28th. That will conclude this week's episode of the Kind of Funny Xcast. I've been one of your hosts, SnowBikeMike, joined with my 2 illustrious, incredible, and all around just great guys, Parris Lily and Mr. Gary Whitta, the Rogue One, Barrett Courtney here on the 1s and 2s. Let's wrap this episode out. Let's go enjoy the weekend as my guy Gary Whitta would like to do. Gary, where can everybody find you? What are you doing? And let's do this thing.
I'm easy to find on all the socials, on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. It's just my name, Gary Whitta, GaryWhitta.
Love that. Parris Lily, tell them what's going on this weekend.
You can find me over at Gamertag Radio, where I just dropped another podcast expanding on our talk about the Xbox Live Gold. So make sure you check that out. And you can find me on socials. It's Vicious696. And my YouTube channel is my name, Parris, Parris.
Love that. You can find me on everything at SnowBikeMike, of course. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Kind of Funny Xcast. We'll see you next week. And like we always tell you, be good to one another and have fun out there. See you, gamers.